Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Squat Cobbler. This is Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram.
And I am Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything. And now will be a great time to tell you guys to like and subscribe.
Definitely. So, well,
We got
done.
so good at it. Just like right there with
and
it.
thanks for listening, everybody.
Wrapping it up.
Quit while we're at it.
Let's not screw it up.
That's right. It's all downhill from here, gang. Sorry.
Going out on top.
Yep. So we're bad at predicting. This might be a short one. We'll see on that.
Typically when we say that, it pushes an hour. So
it can run out. But we appreciate the folks that watched the unboxing video for the Super Console X. Had some decent viewership on that, and promised we'd do a little bit deeper dive. I've had a chance to become more familiar with it and utilize it some, come to a point of view. As somewhat of a tribute to Mike, you may notice that, you know, for most of our videos, he's always this eerie green hue in the videos. It's a component of the lighting in his studio, I believe. And yes. So I thought to honor Mike, I would try to simulate a little bit of that. And it's tied to I'm a little blue, and I'm just a little blue, not just because I couldn't get the light harder blue, but I still like it, and I think people will have to kind of make a decision for $100. Is it worth it or not? But it's not all been roses for me with the Super Console X, and so just wanted to kind of talk through it. I do think if you're willing to invest the time and you're really kind of knowledgeable in the world of, hey, I'm going to kind of build this out even more, and from an extensibility standpoint, I think it's kind of an interesting add to it. I'm not sure it's necessarily superior to kind of taking an approach with a Raspberry Pi, but I think there's some definite things there. And the game, I cannot complain about the gameplay across the board. I've had one game freeze on me the whole time through playing it, so everything else has been really, really solid. Where I'm a little blue and where it's been a little bit of a challenge is the controller side of the equation. So it comes with two controllers. They're Bluetooth. They got the little dongles for you to kind of connect, battery powered. Mentioned that in the unboxing video. And they're not bad. They're definitely they look like a PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 controller, but they don't have the heft of those. And one of the controllers I have has worked the most reliably, and it becomes fairly important for situations where if you're playing a particular game and you want to just basically back out one menu in the game and go forward, there's a key combination on the joystick that you hit there's two buttons, kind of the start button and the select button simultaneously, and it prompts you, say, hit it again if you want to exit, and you get back to the menu. And so by mastering that and going through the games in the menus, I was having a pretty decent time. But then that stopped working, and it never worked on the second controller. And so then I've gone in and kind of gone through the process of having to configure the controller. And the one, probably my biggest complaint on the system is the menuing system, and the ability to kind of go through administrative functions isn't real clean. It takes a little bit of work and understanding, and they have a legend on the bottom on which button to hit to do what. A couple problems with that. One, you can't read the button that they're telling you to hit to say go. Press white circle with some sort of letter inside of it to go back. So you start guessing on your controller, which can cause some problems. And then if you're actually in the process of reconfiguring your controller, you may have jacked that up, and now that button's no longer operating that way. So that's been my biggest struggle and complaint, is just trying to work through some of the utility menus to get things fine-tuned and working right. When I've got that ironed out, or when I hook in, I'm in a kind of a third world controller environment right now. I don't have an Xbox controller or a PlayStation 4 controller.
That was going to be my first question there. Can you just swap it out with a good controller?
Yeah. I think that's the answer. And right now my options are that's the way to go. And I think that really will solve a lot of the problems. But all I've got to work with here, because I don't have a higher end controller. The best I've got is a PlayStation 3 controller, and it's an OG PlayStation 3. So the Bluetooth connectivity's not really going to happen with that. So I can do it wired, but then some of the little tricks I did learn to navigate the menu don't work on the PS3 controller. So I do think, and what I'm going to do is solve the problem. I think it's just get an Xbox controller, and then I think I'm going to probably, one, the programming will be a lot easier, and two, it will recognize a controller, and I think it'll be able to lay a template across it. So my kind of, maybe I don't know if we're burying the lead or not, but I did want to kind of be honest with folks, is to say you might run into some problems out of the box, depending if you don't have kind of a really kind of decent controller, and you're reliant entirely on the ones that they provided. It may be hit and miss a little bit, but it's been a lot of hits, and like I said, I've played it a lot, and I enjoy it. It's got over 40, there are over 40 emulators available, and in the other video you saw the run-through of just a wide array of options.
You hit so many, what I loved about your videos, you hit so many games that I love, from Flashback to, the TurboGrafx stuff. I was definitely interested in seeing Virtual Boy emulated. Yeah. And of course, as in my little follow-up piece, I'm a huge 32X fan and defender of that system. So it was interesting to see a 32X emulator on there.
Yeah, and from an emulation standpoint, really no complaints. I think it's fantastic. And oddly enough, some of the longest plays in the most playable environment I've had so far have been with Virtual Boy. So that's been Mario Tennis, which was my exposure. We talked on a show way back.
Yeah.
That the thing that determined I was not going to buy a Virtual Boy was playing Mario Tennis in a Blockbuster video place where they had it set up, and it was a no-go after that. But if you get out of having to kind of get under the sniper rifle position and duck your head and kind of go in and play it, it's not so bad. You're playing in monochrome, but that's all right. I love all the Game Boy stuff. I just think that's amazing to have all that. So a lot of portable platforms, whether it's Sega, whether it's Nintendo, all those ones are available. The device itself comes with 30,000 titles. It's not a bad place to start to dig through some of that. Give you good information for your legally acquired ROMs to be able to apply those and put them underneath the game emulation. So that's incredibly cool. So that part's there, and the instructions are pretty good there. It's available, so you're probably looking at around $100. I think that's going to be, you'll see kind of a swing of price one way or another. There appears to be one major distributor in the United States, Retro Rays. We'll include a link to them in there.
Is that where you ordered yours from?
I actually, because I wasn't 100% sure, vetting Retro Rays, and this I'm not weighing in saying to be concerned about them or not, but I just hadn't had a chance. Anytime you're going to start to buy some of this stuff and go through a company that you're not familiar with, I'm always a little cautious. So I actually ended up going through the company. So Kinhank, I'm sorry. Kinhank is the actual distributor of it. So I went through their site and ordered it from there, which resulted in some international shipping for me. But that was the other very pleasant surprise, is it was within a 2-week time frame I got it. And which I was really surprised.
So one of the weird shipping things that I've come across during the pandemic is that there's a package that has been on its way to me from Virginia, which is only a few states away from me, for a solid 6 months now and still hasn't arrived. I ordered a piece of music equipment from Russia and had it within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, it's a little unpredictable. You can go on to Amazon and they'll have a couple sellers. One of them being Retro Rays, and yeah, I think Kinhank, I'm sorry, is also available on it as there. So I ended up going through them just to take one variable out of the equation to kind of make sure. But I do think, ton of initial emulations to experiment with, opportunity to expand. It does come with its own, a lot of these we get them, it requires an SD card and you've got to be able to pony that up. It comes with the SD card with it. It comes with an extender on the USB port, so if you wanted to have, it looks like you could have two wireless or four wired gamers playing at one point in time. So it came with that. It's sturdy. It's really well ventilated. A lot of times when you run into some of these small game consoles, that's one of the big issues is the heat. And this looks incredibly well designed for that. They kind of went with, I think, a Nintendo look. I mean, that's the vibe they're looking to get. It's a gray box. It's got that NES kind of feel to it. So really, no complaints with the hardware. With the extension of if you already have a really good controller, I'd recommend it 100%. If you're kind of like me, that I need to go address that issue, then there may be some frustration for you. But it's frustration worth going through, because once you kind of get in there, there's just some awesome stuff on this, and the ability to expand into about any possible gaming platform you could think of.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Just that short clip where you were scrolling through everything. I don't know if you've hit on any of this yet, but I know from my own experiences and from seeing other people's videos and their experiences with things, emulation is really, really tough for whatever the circumstances. Well, for PS1, which makes sense because you're getting into more current hardware and technology, I guess. And you know, Sony themselves completely shit the bed on that one with their PlayStation Mini that half works. Again, I love the PlayStation Mini because I got it for $5. So that's, you know, it's great if that's what you can get it for. But I know there's been issues with that, and a lot of issues with emulating Nintendo 64 games. So I was curious if you had tried any of those on there.
I have, and for the vast majority of them, it's been a really solid emulation. I've always been a huge fan of Donkey Kong on the 64. One of the tons of play on it. That's available. Then we kind of come back to the controller story again a little bit, because it seems to me as I enter that game, it does take quite a bit to load to begin with, but then once it gets going, I'm not able to get it started to the point where the Donkey Kong that I'm used to playing and kind of running through, I can't seem to kind of kick that particular string off within the Donkey Kong process. So I got to get placed somewhere else, and this was really where my controller problem started to come up, because Donkey Kong on the 64. Your key combinations are really important on executing certain types of things, and it was a little hit and miss. So I couldn't tell if it was the emulation, which I'm very skeptical of, and I think it's more back to my controller issue. But the other 64 games, you know, I did like Mario Kart kind of stuff, and worked like a charm.
Nice. And one thing I have seen repeated from other people as well, because when you had first kind of shared some links about this with me, and I was checking it out, one recurring thing that I keep seeing is people complaining about the controllers. So I do think it's definitely probably more your controller than the system. So it'll be interesting when you get a different controller on there to see what your experience is then.
Yeah, because right now it's mostly annoyance. It doesn't make it unplayable, but it's just eventually, you know, figuring out, do I need to kind of get into the system this way and switch over to this controller to at least. But like I said, I don't have a lot of good options now. I don't have a 40-foot Atari fight stick available to plug in.
That's it. Even when I was watching your video, I'm like, I would hook the fight stick up to this.
There you go. Yeah, and I think there you'd be, and I believe you'd be able to go into, once you can decipher how to get into the mapping of the configuration of the controller. That looks like it's pretty good in terms of getting it set up. But with what you've got there, I think you kind of cruise through that process pretty quickly. But then even that process of, okay, I've configured it, I want to save, I want to kind of now go out and use it. Not transparently obvious on some of those things. The manuals provided are not manuals. The little pamphlets on the device are not particularly strong. So that's kind of where the frustration is. I'm sure if I sink a little more time into it, I'll get through that. But also, I'm highly confident that once I just get a reasonable controller, I'll be ready to roll.
Definitely. Well, it definitely seems interesting. There's plenty of games that I'm curious to see if you've checked out, if they're, you know, if you tried to run them on there or they're available legally with any of the packages that you acquired for that. But yeah, there's plenty of games. I'm a huge, so I don't know if you're familiar with this game at all, but I'm a huge fan of Night Trap.
Not familiar.
Okay. It's in the 90s was one of the games that directly led to the video game rating system being made. Because there were people in Congress, and there's great documentaries and video and stuff of them completely making up things that are not in the game Night Trap. Like politicians saying, like, in this game Night Trap, and they're holding up the box and they're like, you can do this and this, and there's rape in it. There's actual congressmen saying there's rape in the game. There isn't. It's nothing at all like that. Like, it's clear, this is clearly people have no idea what this game is. The game is actually fun. It's not good. It's fun in the way that Sci-Fi Channel movies are good movies. Like, it's a fun game like
Gotcha.
that. It's a full motion video game where
Okay.
you have to set off booby traps to trap these people, and to actually, you don't kill anybody. You're trying to save these people in this house that is under siege by these villains, and you have to set off these booby traps to try and stop the people from being killed. And it is Academy Award worthy acting of these people, including there's one of my favorite scenes. There's like one of the characters who somehow doesn't see these 5 people creeping up behind them or whatever, is walking along, and the one guy like being quiet, because I'm sure that everything clearly was one take when they were getting all this done, and you can see him and he's going like this, like creeping up behind the person. So good.
That is the ideal creep position.
Yeah.
Because you got the wind resistance cut down, and you're ready to act. So
Such a good, again, not good in the traditional sense, but just a fun game if you're looking for that sort of thing. So I have been looking for a good emulation experience on that. It was actually bizarrely just re-released on physical media by a company called Limited Run, who licensed it, and they put it out because it's available digitally, I think, now for Switch and a couple other things. But they put out like physical discs of it too, like a Limited Run thing for it. But yeah, I've been looking for good emulation of the original Night Trap and then the 32X port of Night Trap. The 32X port originally was a Sega CD game. Actually, it was developed for a system that never came out. It was moved over to the Sega CD. And then when it was ported to 32X, they made some improvements. There's some extra footage. Everything looks cleaner, better sound effects, things like that. So I'd be curious to like play those side by side, see how the emulators on them work and things like that. And then if you do play them, go and watch some of that footage of senators telling you
all the evils that
Congress people and senators and holding up copies of this game. They're like, in this game, you worship Satan, and you just completely making things up that are not in that game. We pay their salaries.
Shocking. It seems so unlike them. Such a surprise. Such a surprise. All right. Well, so we wanted to kind of go in a little bit deeper, and I hope folks, I'm not knocking this. I do think the important thing is if you're well off in the controller, if you've got good quality controllers, got an Xbox controller, and you're ready to roll, this is probably out of the box, nonstop fun. If you're entirely reliant on the controllers they provide, there will be probably moments in time when your experience is not as fun and a little frustrating. But I don't regret buying it. I'm enjoying the heck out of it. There's so much to kind of go through, so I couldn't even tell you if Night Trap is there. But now you've narrowed down which emulation package to go through. I can check a couple of these out and see. Like I said, from a hardware perspective and from what I've seen so far from an emulation perspective and the ability to add other ROMs, looks pretty solid. And I think you could certainly build something comparable on kind of a Raspberry Pi that's just this probably just maybe shortcut a couple steps for you and you'd be kind of ready to go with it. It'd be a very interesting device to try and do some DIY stuff with and extend out. But it's getting action. I like it. It's fun. I got to fix my controller situation.
You can get custom controllers from Microsoft.
Yes.
So
we'll try through the power of video magic to do that drop in of the pagan video controller again. Hopefully, I can pull that off. And
I want to see the roll deep
the
controller.
roll deep. I gotta work on that. That sounds good. So on that note, we're going to wrap up for this week. Really do appreciate the folks that are watching. We've picked up a few subscribers here over the past couple of weeks. We're very excited about that. Always interested in hearing from you. What kind of content that you'd like to have us cover. We're going to definitely be in this retro gaming space talking about new devices, ad games, arcade one-up, and all that. But really do appreciate all the new folks that have joined us. So thanks. And thanks for listening this week, folks.
Thanks, everybody.